sorry, baby. Hace rato que yo te vi tocar ese gato. Una loba como yo no está pa' novato. Una loba como yo no está pa' tipos como tú. Pa' tipos como tú. A ti te queda grande y por eso estás con una igualita que tú. Esto es pa' que te mortifique, mastique, trague.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. That was a little Shakira with Biza Rap. Hope you enjoyed that intro with our music. This is another charla with Angeles Investors. I'm your host for today, Jorge Pastrana. This charla is Latinas Breaking into VC. This is actually our second episode on this topic with many of the same esteemed panelists that you see in front of you. And the reason we're bringing this back because it's of utmost importance to our community. When I say our community, it's Angeles Investors community, the diverse investing and funding community here in the United States. And it's important, this statistic is rehashed many times, Hispanics are growing or buying power is growing, but like in many other industries, Latina representation in investing firms, professionals in investing remains low, less than 2%. And this Black diversity impacts everybody, right? Latina is breaking into VC. Latina is looking to subsequent funds, attracting limited partners, attracting investors to the funds, as well as investing in diverse founders, because we know that diverse investing groups invest in diverse funders, and Latinas in particular invest in women Latina founders as well. So that's why this is such an important topic. We're bringing it back to you all. And really talking about how do we ensure that capital continues to flow to diverse funds and therefore to diverse founders. And we'll dig into that question amongst others. But without further ado, let me introduce our Latinas in VC here, starting with Adela Cepeda, co-founder and chair of Angeles Investors, co-general partner of Angeles Venture Fund 1, corporate director of BMO Financial, Mercer Funds, the Pathway Funds, and chair of the UBS Funds. Also 100 most influential Latinos, 50 most influential Latina, or powerful Latina. So welcome, Adela. As always, it was always an honor to have you with us. We also have Samara Hernandez, founding partner of Chingona Ventures. What a great name for a venture capital firm. She's also on the advisory board of Angeles Investors. She's been with Angeles since the very beginning, started in 2020. Actually, one of the first people I met with Angeles Investors. So good to see you again, Samara. And on top of being an advisory board member of Angeles, she's also Coldwater, Venture Forward, was an investor at Math Venture Partners across 2 funds, and started her career at Goldman Sachs. We also have Carmen Palafox, founding and managing partner of 2045 Ventures, adjunct professor at USC Marshall School of Business, so teaching entrepreneurship and teaching venture capital, partner at Myla Capital, venture partner at How Women Invest. Welcome, Carmen. And then we got Lisa Feria, managing director at Stray Dog Capital, a leading venture capital fund in food tech with over 45 investments globally. She has 20 years of experience in food operations, leading billion-dollar brands P&G, General Mills, MBA from Booth, Bachelor of Science, Chemical Engineering from Georgia Tech. Some renowned institutions there. So welcome, Lisa. And ending the introduction with Noramay, Cadena, managing partner at Supply Chain Capital. She's invested in over 90 companies across industries and stages. 100 most influential Latina. Original co-founder of Latinas in STEM, and also Somos VC, very impressive. Holds 3 degrees from MIT. Prior to VC, spent over a decade in the aerospace industry. So I think we've all got a pretty good picture here. We're sitting in front of royalty here of Latinas in the VC space. So thanks so much for being with us. So I'm going to start with you, Noramay, with the first question around, why you're in VC, why you got into VC, why you're still in VC today.
I think from the backgrounds, by the way, Jorge, we're not breaking into anything. We've been in it for decades. so we've broken in. I am in VC because my career, I was working on bringing products to market, albeit in a pretty big way. I had the
All right. I think we've lost Noramay. Is it just me?
Oh.
Okay, you're back. You're back, Noramay. Please
Okay.
continue. Yeah.
Okay. During the first half of my career, I had the chance to work on innovation and bringing products to market, and really loved that work, but found it to be very slow in a corporate setting. So about 12 years was all I could take, and I wanted to move faster. And I searched for a venture-backed opportunity, and instead ended up co-founding a venture capital firm. And so for me, venture is the perfect intersection between bringing products to market and having a chance to decide whose products, ideas, services, and platforms have a chance to be successful, and what entrepreneurs to bet on. And so it really brought together the innovation and the equity and impact piece that I wanted to live by.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Noramay. And fully aligned with you, Latinas in VC growing the VC space. So I'm with you there. Carmen, if you want to provide your background on, why you got into VC, why you continue to be in VC today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I started my career investing in public equity, so complete opposite end of the spectrum, and transitioned into venture after getting my MBA at Haas, and really started to see how big of an economic driver venture is when you think about the public equity and what's at the top of the market: NVIDIA, Amazon, Netflix, Alphabet. They were all venture backed, and so for me, I wanted to be part of that innovation economy. I also wanted to be part of the growth of the ecosystem in Los Angeles and California, where over 50% of the population is Latino.
Yeah, no. Definitely, Carmen. Similar to me, Orlando City lead, Central Florida, so many Latinos. How do we get more people involved? All right, Adela, we'll end this question with you.
Well, I've always been in finance and investments, and all across the spectrum. And I think that it just is pretty clear why there is a lag in Latino entrepreneurial scaling. I mean, we open businesses more than any other group, Latinas in particular, but we don't exceed $1 million in revenue. That's rare. Why is that? Because we don't have the resources generally to borrow, $100,000 from our husband or our parents. We don't come from that. So I think that the potential of venture to dramatically shift the opportunities for Latinos is huge. So I want to do my part. I also want to have the opportunity to get returns from what I consider investing in absolutely the most under recognized and appreciated sector of the market, the Latino market.
Yeah. Yep. It impacts everybody, like you said, Adela. Not just the investment firms, but the founders looking for funds to grow their companies. And like Noramay said, we're here. You all have broken into VC. You're established and you're growing the VC space for Latinas. How have you qualified success over these years? And I'll go to Samara with this one. I believe you're on mute, Samara.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, and I'm so honored to be around a group full of chingonas, and back 5 years later since we did this originally. So in terms of qualifying success, this venture capital space is a it takes a long time to see if you're really good.
Mhm.
Actually, this year I'm going to complete my 10th year in venture capital, and early on, it's okay. I was at another venture firm, and it was, am I getting deals done? Am I pushing them through IC meeting? Am I seeing revenue growth? Am I seeing markups in the portfolio? And then over time, as you get to see that, and as I started to launch my own firm, early success was, can I raise my own fund? Can I raise the money? That's the first step. And then can founders will they want to take my capital, and will I be a value add? That was initially the first piece of it. The second fund was more around, okay, do they want to do that? And can I start leading deals? Can I increase my ownership? Can I can I get into oversubscribed rounds? And can I continue to invest? Will I continue to show them a value add, and then I earn the right to continue to invest in companies? And then now with going into fund 3, it's what are the markups? What are the distributions? What are some of the acquisitions and exits that we're starting to see? So there's definitely the performance metrics, but I would also say what we're building and what we're doing in our community. So in terms of who I'm hiring at my firm, how we're promoting them, we're trying to not only change the way venture capital is done, but also who makes the decisions, who gets funded, and then who ultimately builds wealth. And so for me, that is also success. Is yes, of course, it's, can I raise a fund? Will founders take my capital? Can I bring on a group of more non-traditional investors into the fund? But ultimately, are we making a dent? Are we changing the industry in terms of the funding? And then, the exits will come, and they just take some time. But for us, it's really changing the ecosystem.
Yep. Beyond fund performance, impacting others. And Samara, I don't know if you aware of this, but Isabella Artilis, one of the founding interns at Angeles Inventors, I know she interned with you as well. Just opened up a bagel shop, Migos Bagels, in Ciudad, Mexico. So it's been fun to see that happen. And so that's part of your impact too. Adela's impact, your impact, Samara, as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of former interns starting their own funds, working at venture funds, starting their own companies. So that's right. We want to bring in more entrepreneurs into the ecosystem and more investors.
Yeah, great to see. Lisa, if you want to provide insights to this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think Samara did a fantastic job answering. So I will only add a few pieces to that. I think when I define success outside of all the metrics and all the logistical pieces of what we do, getting capital, deploying capital, getting companies, partnering with companies, growing companies, and having them be acquired by somebody else. I think it's really, success is also measured by the ecosystems that we help build. In many places, the opportunities that we're investing in are very nascent. That's why they're so interesting for venture capital. You're investing in areas that are new, underinvested in, opportunistically great, but not built up. That's why venture capital is so needed, is because academia is not already there, or a million corporate public companies are not already there. And so building these ecosystems is so important. And to me, success also looks like when you leave different markets or regions or communities that you've helped partner with other venture capitalists, you've helped partner with non-governmental agencies, with the government. You really have helped build this strong ecosystem behind you that really helps the framework of companies to be successful. Because in many of these situations, these companies cannot be successful completely on their own. They need help from the supply chain, or partnerships, or deals, or that first opportunity. And so as venture capitalists, part of our role that doesn't really get talked about is building these ecosystems. And then the last piece I mentioned, and Samara mentioned this a little bit at the end, but it's also how we pull up as we go up. What doors do we open that nobody else saw or care enough to open? What opportunities do we give other people to get into this very tough space? And how do we help them through their career, whether it be in our hands and our arms or somebody else's, to continue, launching more funds into the space, more opportunistic investment areas. And so those would be the additional pieces I would add to the success metric.
Yeah, appreciate it, Lisa. And I'd say straight out capital is in a really nascent industry, so it really speaks to the mission that you have. Noramay, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I'll share first, how I qualify success for myself, and then I wanted to add a couple of points along with both Samara and Lisa said. So for me, this month will be my 10th year anniversary in venture. I was just thinking about that the other day. I've been part of co-founding 2 venture capital firms, and not that I would recommend entering venture by being an emerging GP. I think it's the hardest way to break into venture. I would definitely do it differently if I could, but it has been an incredible experience. I've been part of nearly 100 investments through those 2 firms, through Portfolio and through my own angel portfolio. And then through Supply Chain Capital, which is the firm I co-lead now, 40% of our investments in Fund 1 have gone to Latino CEOs. And about 50% of the portfolio companies we've invested in now are led by women. So those are ways we certainly also ensure that we're continuously driving bias out of the process. And, double clicking on what Lisa said, who I've co-invested with, thinking about the ecosystem and how to do things differently. Some of the ways that we've contributed to that include, coming up with an SPV, teaming up with 2 other firms and launching an SPV that enables new entrants to venture have access to the asset class as a wealth building opportunity, while also supporting 3 distinct GPs and having, diversification along a very small LP investment. We're part of lots of female GP networks, formal and informal. Somos VC has been one of the ways in which I've been able to have a front row seat at what it takes to support GPs and to further build out the deal sharing ecosystem for founders. And then also we've been leading through sharing how we implement impact and our own impact theory of change and how it flows from evaluating a deal to post-investment KPIs and rolling out into a formal impact report. Those are all ways in which we consider ourselves pretty lucky. And maybe just one more comment, Jorge, is PitchBook shared data that we got to digest recently around the number of emerging funds raised. And this is funds and not firms. At the peak in 2021, 933 funds were raised. That number went down to 868 in 2022. And in 2025, we were at about 25% of the peak in 2021. So that is a drastic decrease in number of funds raised. We're certainly seeing that. I mean, if we're in market, we are seeing the slowdown of fundraise. So one of the success metrics will inevitably be, who's left standing at the end of this year, and how do we ensure that we're trying to protect our community and support each other through this slow period.
Yeah, no, great point. If we as a community don't do the work, it won't get done. By the way, Somos VC, Carmen shared a report for me to prepare for this about all the statistics. So thank you, Somos VC, for the work you do. And I think, Noramay, that's a good pivot to the next question, which is about, since you've been in the industry, how has the landscape changed, or how hasn't it changed, right, for diverse funds, founders, from your perspective? And I'll start with Adela on this one, if you want to provide your thoughts.
Thank you. And by the way, thank you for the opportunity to be here with these outstanding fellow venture capitalist women, Latinas. I'm so honored to be here. The landscape, how it has changed?
Change or not change? How do you see it?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the statistics that Noramay cited are that they say the story. There's just a lot less money there for investing. And at the same time that the market, that the capital is shrinking, the numbers aren't increasing for new firms, which would have to be the case if Latinos and other underrepresented groups were to get a larger piece of the pie. It's not happening. We're coming in at a very difficult time. But what is encouraging to me is that being a founding member of Panelist Investors, to be able to say that in 5 years we have over 500, maybe 550 members, that we have coached, trained, had interns. I mean, I think it's like 35, and many of them have stayed in the industry, have received opportunities. I think it's like planting. I think we're planting seeds that, when we are represented at all levels, it just makes it easier for us to have access. And I think with Samara's firm, all the firms represented here, what we do in terms of bringing on potential future GPs and investors, having over 500 Angeles investors right there. I mean, we can just access them at one time and motivate them to understand the industry, the intricacies of deals, the terms, and invest their hard-earned capital into it. It's just an amazing opportunity and moment for us to make a difference in this area of investments where we've been, silent, ignored.
Yeah. There's progress in the face of headwinds, and so that is point. I've seen firsthand the impact that Angeles has had, and you can too. We had a previous charla on Angeles investors' path from intern to VC. You can hear all the great stories of some of the folks that have come through Angeles, including, like I mentioned, Isabella. But Carmen, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this question.
Yeah, I think about it from an industry point of view. When you think about venture capital, it's definitely become mainstream. And so what's happened is that you have multi-billion-dollar firms, and then you have smaller funds under 100 million, under 250 million, and a lot of us sit in that smaller bucket. So it's harder to see the change from a percentage perspective when you think about assets under management, when you have this very stark difference in fund size. But what I think is promising and exciting and keeps me hopeful really are the organizations that we've talked about here. I think when I entered venture 10 years ago, there weren't organizations like Somos VC, like All Raise, focused on female founders and funders. So we're seeing a lot more ecosystem builders. And that's really important because when we all entered, we had to kind of break the trail, right? We had to make our own path, advocate, and also do the work of the VC, where now we have organizations and leaders leading those organizations that are able to break the trail, advocate, and create more opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, I've done the hard work of laying the stepping stones for everybody else. So, Samara, maybe the last one, if you want to put some input on this question.
Yeah, no, I think, say when I first started as well, I mean, I'm in Chicago, and there was, I think, one Latina firm, like Latina that I knew, me. But then there was nobody else. And it's grown over time. There's a few others, but, I do see the venture capital. When I graduated from business school and I joined a venture firm over 10 years ago, there wasn't not a lot of these ecosystem builders. There wasn't anybody you can really look up to. And so you just kind of had to figure it out. And I'm very fortunate that early on, I was able to discover and meet with some of the women on this panel. And we're still friends to this day. And we share deal flow, we share fundraising stories. I am part of other groups as well, the National VC Moms group in this WhatsApp, and we talk through anything from deals to car seats to, conferences and LPs. And so that's really helped. However, I will say that we've made some progress, and I think there's just still a lot more room for that to continue to grow. We're certainly not where we need to be or want to be, and where we believe we can be, especially given the population of where Latinos are and how much contribution we have to this economy. So I'm happy to see there's some progress, but I think that there's still more left to go.
All right, thanks, Samara. So Latinas listening, if you're interested in breaking into VC, you can hear that well-connected network, almost like a family here of Latinas that have built this ecosystem up. So Lisa, I'm gonna transition to you for the next question, and that's really going back to the comments that Noramay made, right? Fewer funds, and this landscape that we see. How do we keep capital going to diverse funds and founders? How do we move forward?
Yeah, I think so. I'll use the founder example first because it's very applicable to us as managing partners or investors within funds. In the past year, 2 years, I would say the market has been really tough. So we're early stage investors. We were very used to 5-6 years ago for our second fund, and in some way our first fund, that we would invest the early stage and then the growth investors would come in and swoop, and we would go and the company would go. And now what we've noticed and what we're advising and mentoring our companies to do more is they need to have a better story. They need to be further cooked. Their company needs to be very sustainably investing in growth, not irresponsibly investing in growth, because the growth stage consumers or the investors are expecting companies to be better cooked, the story to be very clear, to have some very clear early product wins or early market proof, etc. So what they'll invest in has to be further along than even a few years ago, and definitely more put together. And so I will expand that to us as GPs in the space, is that I think the funds that 5-6 years ago could invest with just an idea and enthusiasm, now you really need to be a lot more dialed in, a lot more proof of success, a lot more specificity on what makes you different. Like the fund story just needs to be better put together. But I'll period new paragraph that to say that we're fighters. I think that's something that characterizes Hispanics in general, Latinos in general, is that we are not afraid of a tough situation or a tough fight. We figure it out. And part of our superpower is connections to each other, building community. Growing up in Puerto Rico, how many hurricanes did we not have that the entire island was without power? And first day, people are taking their grills to the front and sharing their food and water. Instead of hoarding, you're helping. Like your community really comes together to help everybody at the same rate, not just the people that were able to have a generator or the people that bought a bunch of water, but literally everybody in your community. And I think that's more important than ever. So when things get even tougher, that's when you need to pick up the phone, call Adela and say, hey, Adela, I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me think through this? Or Carmen and say, hey, I have this great LP. I think he would be great for you. Can I introduce you? Like, this is the moment to really, really activate the superpower and use it to leverage our strength and our power during these tougher times for raising.
Yeah. No, thanks, Lisa. Shout out to all the Puerto Ricans listening and other Latinos, Latinas as well. Noramay, if you want to put input here.
Yeah, no, I think I love what Lisa said. Another shout out to all the Mexicanos on the call. You went there, Jorge. But nothing to add in addition to that.
Okay. No, appreciate it. Carlos, if you want to go to any questions from our audience, and if you haven't put your question in yet, now's a good time to add a question for our panelist.
Jorge, Can I chime in on something? So I wanted to just add to something Lisa said around this. I think there's a broader flight to perceived quality. And that's both on the founders and on the fund side. So you're also seeing this kind of have and have nots. So you're seeing some funds being oversubscribed by 400 million, and you're seeing some funds not being able to raise their next fund, right? And yes, I do agree that in exuberant markets, there was a lot of people coming to market. There was a lot of people that didn't have investing experience raising funds, and that is a lot harder now. But I would also, there's also this kind of this perceived quality piece, I think, also leads to some bias and also leads to not a lot of new entrants coming into market, both from the founder side as well as from the VC side. So yes, from the VC side, am I thinking, okay, am I going to take less risk, although we're risk investors, right? And then invest in an experienced founder with traction and all the things. Yes, that's the kind of the easier perceived, more quality deals. But I would push us to say, all right, yes, that is what we see as perceived quality, but is there something else that we can assess from a performance standpoint? Is there a potential that we can assess? Is there something here that is different? Because really, that's where you drive alpha in this space. You drive it by investing in things that are up and coming, non-traditional, contradictory things. And we are coming to now put a lot of capital in the same types of founders and the same types of funds. And so one of the questions I know you had asked before was just how do we keep money flowing into diverse funds and founders? And I would say, that this mentality that we had, that we expanded on 2 or 3 years ago in the height of the market, I know that was exuberant, but taking that same mentality and looking at the potential, looking at non-traditional founders, non-traditional investors, looking at non-traditional geographies, opportunities, that first and foremost is where I believe we will drive alpha, but also where we can push the limit and really start to change the ecosystem.
Good point, Samara. I think in competition, that's when quality shines, and that's where innovation happens. And I think that's what you're speaking to there. Before we move to the questions, anybody else wanted to add anything before we move?
I guess I would say that it seems to me there has never been a time of greater innovation and technological advancement. So what is going on with capital over here, it's happening at a moment where we, as players in the industry, can capture that extra alpha that Samara is talking about. And if we do, and our numbers demonstrate extraordinary alpha, I think we have longevity potential here. I mean, I'm confident of that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have entered the industry so aggressively at this point. And I think the industrial change is the opportunity for us. And that's like the space we are extremely focused on.
Yeah, thanks, Adela. I'm hearing a call to action here in all these opportunities. So, okay, Carlos, what we got here? How do you identify, engage, and attract prospective startups? Carmen, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. I mean, I think about it in 2 ways. One, very intentionally, so spending time in communities that support female founders, that support underrepresented founders, that support immigrant founders, and then more organically. So participating in pitch competitions, being a judge, speaking at events, and then through the work that I do at USC, I teach both semesters. So I meet about 100 students per year. Some of my students are now in venture, so I have a few 360 moments where they come back and speak in my class. Some are operators at tech companies, and some go on. I get a phone call that they've decided to launch a company. There's a lot of activity in that ecosystem as well. So I think about it in those ways in terms of how to find and source opportunities, and then in terms of how I engage, just coming from investing in companies at day zero, so investing really early, understanding what their biggest challenges are, and kind of adding support in that way. I don't want to get in their way, but I also want to help them reach their next milestones. And so that can look like making introductions to potential customers, or helping them find talent, or hosting workshops on customer success or RevOps. So it manifests in different ways.
A lot of groundwork. Sounds like grassroots here. Noramay, if you want to add anything to that question.
Yeah, on where we find deals, we certainly track year over year, the number, the buckets, all the different sectors and how those change over time. And, I've one partner, and we're pretty spread geographically. And so the strongest source of deals is certainly our investor network. But our professional network is a big source as well. And then for us, being accessible and approachable is key, and that means that we're part of a lot of industry and tech events. We're judging, we're hosting a pitch showcase, which we do every year, that brings us over 100 applicants that are early stage. Those are some of the ways in which we see deals, and we track data through our process in a very discrete way. We look at the diversity of deals coming in and the diversity of deals through every single step in our pipeline. And so we're able to have conversations like, how are women faring from initial call to team call, and then, all the way through diligence? And is there something that we can fix in our process to ensure that we don't have as much leakage as we might be seeing right now? But the sources are, investor network, professional network, events, inbounds. A source that is growing over time is certainly outbounds. As we bring more and more talent onto our team, it means that we're able to say, we're really curious about what's happening in cold chain. Let's go look at the sector. And we develop a market map. We look at the universities that are key. We look at strategics and the gaps. And then we're able to go and find the companies ourselves. And I think that's a really powerful way to source, because you're informing yourself of the market, what gaps there are, and then you're better able to diligence once you do find the companies.
Thanks, Noramay, for the insights. Network. Carlos, if you can bring up the next question. What does the current VC market space look like for industry, service, innovation, and education? Not sure which one of you could speak best to this one, if at all. I don't think we have the experts for this question. All right. Is there a formal internship or fellowship for Latinos that want to learn about VCs? Who wants to jump in on this one? Has good information here.
Well, I don't know if this is a Mariela question from Somos VC, but certainly Somos VC, they have a fellowship program, and many of us are mentors for that program. And maybe Noramay knows the stats, but there's a good percentage of the ones that have actually gone through the fellowship that have converted into full-time VC roles. So I'm a big fan of the Somos VC fellowship.
And Jorge, at Angeles, we have quite a number of interns per quarter that are in a large number of cases MBA students, and the schools want to expose them to the venture space. So we have an opportunity to select, students with an affiliation or an affinity for Angeles, and one that we think will fit in. So we take several students at that level, and these are from the best MBA schools in the country. And then we also take college students, again, like Dominican and others, where the schools and University of Chicago, where they want their students to be exposed to the industry. And that's been, very, very, very productive. Not to mention, we've started out with volunteers that interned for a year or two and are now, on track to be principals at their at a position with a venture capital firm. I could cite a few of those. So there are various ways that we've been able to contribute to the ecosystem of educating future significant players in this space.
Yeah. And I can confirm, I was an intern with Angeles. Okay, School of Business. Adela said it. Top business schools. Adela said it. Noramay, you started talking, but you were on mute. I don't know if you wanted to add anything. I saw a comment there.
Yeah, we can share that comment. So Pledge LA here in Los Angeles runs a venture fellowship program. HBCU VC runs a venture fellowship program. KPOR Center ran one last year. I don't know if it'll run again this year. So a few other resources.
Yeah, and I saw a comment. Carlos, you highlighted a comment on applications open this fall. What was the context for that one? Was that Somos? That's Somos VC, right? Somos VC. Yep. Okay. Got it. And regarding his investors internships, just follow Angeles on LinkedIn. It's posted on there when it's time, and feel free to apply. Carlos, we can move to the next question. When is the appropriate time to approach a VC about potential job opportunities that they're still in the process of raising, closing a fund? Lisa, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, happy to take it. I will tell you that the process of raising a fund is, it takes everything that you have, you and your team. So you're out there constantly racing or doing due diligence, or you're spread in so many different directions. So what I have found for Seeda Capital has been that we wait until we have our first close down and things are calmer to potentially start growing the team, start doing some evaluations. And then definitely after the fund is closed, that's the time to go. Typically, we start investing once we have our first check done, or a little bit prior to that, or first close done. And so after we have our first close, then we're already starting to accelerate, ergo, that's usually the time when we expand the team. So I'd recommend that at least it's never bad to have conversations or to meet, to have the first gentle touch point. But the level of attention and time at that point is probably not going to be as much as it will be a little bit later.
Yeah, and I would also say, do the job before you do it. And we get a lot of inbound for those wanting to get into VC, and the market has certainly changed. I would say if there's jobs that are already open, search for those. But I also got my first VC role when the fund was about to finish their close. They were still raising. They didn't even have a website. I had to really look them up to see if they were a for real fund. And that's actually the best time. And I was networking for a year prior to that, but I was doing whatever I could with startups, whatever I could with VCs, and many times not paid. I think you should always get paid for a job, but at the time I just took whatever. And it's very different going up and emailing somebody and saying, hi, here's my resume and is there a job open? It's very different than saying, hi, I've been following your firm for a while. You understand you invest in future work, future learning, fintech, pre-seed. These are a few deals that I found. Here's, my thoughts on the health tech space that you invest in, and here's a few different, companies. Now, again, if you're fundraising, if a GP's fundraising, it's going to be very hard to get their attention. But that email, those emails that I have gotten, very few of them, I have responded to, and those drew my attention. And actually, in one case, we were building out a thesis in this women's health tech space, and I was like, oh wow, we were looking at this, and I got on a call with them to discuss it. And then we ended up they ended up going to another venture firm, and we were a reference with them. We developed a mentor-mentee relationship, and then I was a reference call for her in 2 other funds. And so I think doing the job before you're actually doing it, one, to see if you like it, because you're going to be doing sourcing memos. You're going to be thinking about your thesis on a specific market and helping out with that. So the more you can show that without having the job, I think you'll be more attractive to venture firms when they are ready to hire you.
Well, great question. Great answers. Thank you. Carlos, if you have one more, I think we have time for one more. All right. From Casoto Tequila. I'm curious about how does your group approach fostering diversity in the startup ecosystem, both in terms of founders and the investors you collaborate with? I think you may have touched on this, Carmen, a little bit earlier, but if you want to add anything else to this question.
So just in terms of, fostering diversity in the ecosystem, I think about it from so many different angles, even from the LP side. So in our fund, 55% of our LPs are women, and a big majority are Latinos. And for me, that's important as well, to see diversity in the LP base, because they also have broad networks and are able to act on kind of our behalf, and be part of our brand out there in the marketplace, and bring us opportunities as well. But just from my own experience, and what I do, I'm very mindful of who I bring in my class as guest speakers, because I also want to expose my students to diverse investors, and make sure that they're seeing a broad spectrum of, different types of backgrounds, and different types of stages of investing.
I think it's also being intentional about it, right? Because like early on, we were early investors in a company called Certiverse, where we brought Angeles in, right, from the very beginning, their first round. Adela, I think, personally invested in some others, and they just got a huge markup, a Series A. And so they were oversubscribed. And I think they've come in multiple rounds. And so for us, it's being intentional. There's a founder in the portfolio, Elias Torres, who is a unicorn. So his last company exited for over $1 billion. And yes, I was stalking him for 2 years, but when he was ready to get to do the deal, Sequoia led the round, and we were able to squeeze in and participate, and he called us, right? And so, and he didn't have to take our capital, but he was intentional about who was around the cap table. I know with Noramay and I, we've shared deals together, right? With Alejandro from Act One, we've done a few deals together, where before we even go sign the term sheet, I'm like, here's the deal, and we talk through the deal. We've co-invested. So I think it's really being also intentional about who you bring on the cap table, especially if you're the one leading the deal. Because some of these hot deals get oversubscribed. And so I think that's another way you can be intentional and foster the ecosystem. And one other thing I would say is, when you're fundraising, we also, this is, I guess, a big pitch for Angeles, but for our last raise, we also made it a point to pitch to Angeles. I think it was the first time some of their investors were LPs in the fund, and coming in. And so we were grateful to have a bunch of Angeles investors come in. And so again, for us, it's really being intentional from who invests in our fund, who we partner with, who we invest in, and then who we ultimately hire. So I think that's another way of being intentional about diversity in the ecosystem.
Thanks, Samara. Thanks for everything you do. Oh, Adela, if you want to add.
Yeah, but as to round out that, I'm always on the lookout for fabulous Latina startup companies, because I do see a tendency to not prioritize that. And, Canela TV is a perfect example. It took a minute to get the attention from inside my own group. And it was like, oh, well, this, well, that. Well, wait a minute. Let's just pay attention here, because I'm paying attention. I've been talking to her for 6 months, and I think she has something, experience, has done it before. You can get distracted by these concepts, but success comes with execution too. You got the concept, and then you got to execute. When you have an experienced operator that has a vision for twisting things around, that's very special, because she might be able to get it done. And now we have she asked us to be co-lead of one of the rounds, round A, Series A. We've just been very engaged with the growth of Canela, and that's been great for the team. And we hope to have a fabulous exit, that she will have a fabulous exit, that our members will participate, favorably in. But you have to stay with it. You can't get demoralized by others not coming along and not seeing the potential that you see. I think we're always fighting that, right, as women.
Latinas championing Latina founders and funding them. So now we'll move to some closing comments from our panelists. Any message you want to give to our audience, the Latinas in the audience here? Yeah, we can start with Carmen.
Well, thanks again for having me. And I just want to say, it's a really exciting time in venture. When I started 2045 Ventures in 2020, it was during the pandemic. And since then, we saw the launch of GPT in 2022, as well as the CHIPS Act and IRA. So there's a lot of exciting investment opportunities out there. And I encourage Latinas to get involved and learn about the industry, whether it's from entering to work in the industry, or another good pathway is to work for a startup and get that operator experience, and then potentially move into a VC firm or become a LP and support the emerging managers out there who are doing the work.
Thank you. Noramay.
Yeah. I'm going to share a link to a book that Laura Lucas published on Latinas in Venture. And I think what you'll find during throughout the book is an incredible list of very accomplished Latinas across a wide variety of sectors who are now, in a position to allocate capital and have a voice and a seat at the table. And I would say for many of us, building has been challenging. And I want to remind Latinas who are building and getting a lot of feedback that not all feedback is reality. And that we are definitely up against a lot of bias, gender and otherwise, in an industry that can be very, very unforgiving. And so having a small group of people that you connect with, that you can share and commiserate with, is incredibly important. And so I would lean on the people who are in it, living it for that kind of inspiration, whether it's formal or informal. But it's a tough time. There are incredible opportunities, great people in it, and don't take feedback too seriously.
A great call out, Noramay, with the Latinas in VC book. I actually bought it. I was supposed to have it here with me. I forgot. So it's a good call out. And what Noramay didn't mention is that many of the Latinas you see here are mentioned in that book and their stories. Lisa.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think, these women are incredibly inspirational, and they're where they are because they have worked really hard, partnered, found opportunities, and this is the time to do that. It's a tough time. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. I would not give up. I would fight. I would look for opportunities. If they close the door, you open the window. This is the time to really figure out how to do things differently, how to be very incredibly scrappy, and how to do it with the help and helping others. So don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your desire to be in VC or progress or grow in VC. Just buckle down and really figure out how to be creative to make it happen.
Samara.
Yeah, and I was just nodding at everything Noramay was saying, living it right now. But I think the best piece of advice is, for me, is you just have to find that one person, one investor, one LP. And for me, it was Rodrigo Garcia, also a board advisor to Angeles. He got me in business, and I'm forever grateful for him. And we oftentimes want to be the first big check to a founder. And so whether you're fundraising, you're raising capital, or you're trying to get into VC, or whether you're fundraising for your fund, you really find your people. Yes, there's people that are going to say no and give you feedback, and take it as you will, but find the ones that really believe, really love it. And even if it's small checks, build some momentum and get to the first big yes. And so I would say focus on those that are excited to partner with you, that believe in you, that will be sponsors, that will be your first check. Focus on them, and as well as find your community of people that you can share your struggles and can help you get through the tough times.
Perfect. And Adela, you get the last word here.
Thanks. Well, there's different audiences we have. But if you're interested in the space, joining Angeles Investors is a great way to connect with others that may be further along in the investing spectrum, or maybe starting out like you. So you don't feel like, oh, everybody here knows and I don't know. There's a whole mix of members along the spectrum of investment. So that's a great way to learn. It's a great way to give back by investing in these fabulous founders that have great ideas and need a hand. And we try to, I mean, you asked before about the pipeline. I mean, I think we get, you know better than me maybe, but 50 to 100 a month that apply on the Angeles website. And then there are others that we get through other sources. So we're going through a lot to find the best for our members. So that's important. You had great comments about the internship all across the spectrum and across the country. So if you're a student interested in that, there's a number of different ways. And if you're a founder, you know, there's less capital, but there's still capital out there. So it's a question of making the capital work, getting to, you know, the revenue and some level of profitability sooner. I mean, I think that's what a lot of the investors are looking for. I think Samara commented on that. But the great thing is that we're trying to establish a foothold in an industry that we had no even information about. And that is just so great. And I just want to encourage everyone to consider it as part of their investment mix.
No, well said, Adela. So those listening, if you're interested in as investors, reach out membership at angelinvestors.com. Like Adela said, if you're not yet ready to start investing, you can start learning from an investing community. We do have an associate membership. If you are ready to start investing, have experience, or are looking for a way to start, we do have an accredited investor membership as well. That said, it's been a great honor and privilege to host all of you, to hear all your stories and insights. I've learned a lot. So again, big privilege to be here with you all today. And a major thanks to everybody that joined, Latinos, Latinas, everybody that was with us here today. Thank you so much. And with that, like they said, Angeles, to the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jorge.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
La prensa en la puerta y la deuda en Hacienda. Te creíste que me heriste y me volviste más dura. Las mujeres ya no lloran, las mujeres facturan. Tiene nombre de persona buena. Claramente no es como suena. Tiene nombre de persona buena. Claramente es igualita que tú. Pa' tipo como tú. A ti te queda grande y por eso estás con una igualita que tú. Del amor al odio hay un paso. Por acá no vuelvas, me caso. Cero rencor, bebé. Yo te deseo que te vaya bien con mi supuesto reemplazo. No sé ni qué es lo que te pasó. Estás tan raro que ni te distingo.